Hi, everyone. There's still time to claim the expanded child tax credit, and we're so excited today to speak to you about how schools and other school groups can help connect families to thousands of dollars. My name is Julia Beebe, and I'm with the Partnership for America's Children and the Coalition on Human Needs. And I'm going to speak a little bit about what is the 2021 Expanded Child Tax Credit, or CTC. As part of the American Rescue Plan, a number of tax credits were expanded, including the CTC, and nearly 90% of children in the US are now eligible for this credit. In order to get this money, families must file 2021 tax returns to get the payment. We know many people might be concerned that tax day has passed, so it's really important to emphasize that individuals who are not required to file taxes because they have no or low income can still file without penalty. And in fact, even individuals who have filing obligations but are due refunds from the IRS can still file without penalty. So it's absolutely not too late to claim this money. And fortunately, recently, getctc.org launched, which is now available as another option for families to claim the child tax credit, and it makes it even easier to get this money. The child tax credit was expanded for kids under the age of 6 up to $3,600 per child. For families that received half of their credit in advance payments, that was $300 per month between July and December of 2021. And for kids who are 6 to 17 by the end of 2021, that credit was $3,000 per child. Children do need Social Security numbers to get this credit, but adults can claim the credit using an SSN or what's known as an ITIN, or Individual Taxpayer Identification Number. And unfortunately, those who did not file a tax filing extension and have never had an Individual Taxpayer Identification Number can no longer claim this expanded 2021 child tax credit. They can get an ITIN and for future credits, hopefully claim that money. But it's important to emphasize that people who have current ITINs or even have expired ITINs can still claim this money. And so if there are families in your school or district who need to renew their ITIN, they can do that and still claim this 2021 expanded credit. And you probably don't need to hear from us about how important this extra money has been to children and families and will be to those in your district and school. But as a quick summary, we know that in the first 6 months of the 2021 CTC, it actually reduced the number of children experiencing poverty by about 30%. It also reduced food insufficiency in households with children by 26%. We know from research that the child tax credit was used for food, for school expenses, housing costs, clothes, and more. And unfortunately, despite these huge impacts and how important this is, there are 4 million or more children at risk of missing out on this credit. And that's why we're so excited to be speaking to schools and other groups working with schools so that we can make sure that all families know that this credit is real and that they're likely eligible for it. And just as a quick example of how much money is on the table, in a family that has 4 kids between the ages of 5 and 14, they would get $3,600 for their youngest child and $3,000 each for each of the 3 older kids, for a total of $12,600, a really significant amount of money. And it's important to note that's just from the federal child tax credit. Many families may be able to get other tax credits at the state or federal level, or also miss stimulus payments. And as I mentioned earlier, in May, getctc.org, which is a simplified filing portal, reopened. And through that, families can claim the child tax credit and their 3rd stimulus payment if they didn't get that. And this was created by our partners at Code for America. It's an IRS-approved official e-file provider. And this is open to families with no or low incomes who do not have filing obligations. And when families go to this website, they'll be directed through a series of questions to ensure that they are eligible and will benefit from filing through GetCTC. It's mobile and user-friendly, so families who maybe don't have computer access but have phones can navigate. It's available in English and Spanish. And while they'll be filling this out, there is certified chat support available. We know so far that most individuals finish this process in under 15 minutes. And so It's a very straightforward process, and it will be open through mid-November of 2022. And so we really encourage schools to point families to getctc.org, where families with no filing obligations can quite simply claim this money. And so now I want to pass it over to our partner, Sarah McKittrick, who's from Code for America and has done really wonderful school outreach work, especially in Massachusetts. And so I'm going to pass it off to you, Sarah, to take it from here.
Thank you so much, Julia. Like Julia said, my name is Sarah McKittrick, and I am the Senior Outreach Manager for Tax Benefits at Code for America. And previous to this role, had the opportunity to work with about 20 school districts in the state of Massachusetts to help increase access to the child tax credit. And we really believe that this is important because school districts are such trusted messengers for families. And so really appreciate you getting the word out. So as far as key messages to really hit on when talking to families about this program, really keep it high level, right? There's still time to get up to thousands of dollars in federal money. Like Julia just said, it is thousands of dollars that folks could be eligible for that they could be missing. You can have low or no income to get this money. And the way you apply is by filing a tax return, and individuals with low or no income can file a simplified return at getctc.org. It's important to note that getting this money does not impact your immigration status or the status of the people that you live with. And it also does not count for public benefits. So SNAP, WIC, certain types of public or subsidized housing, etc. Most families who got the monthly money from the IRS last year for their kids, so the $250 or $300 per month per child, need to sign up again in 2022 to get the rest of their money. If they did not receive the monthly payments, then they need to sign up as well. So those are just another couple key messages. And I will note that these are really embedded in the materials that we will provide you later. So no need to remember all of this. In terms of how to reach families and what the best practices are, it's really better to hear it from a school district themselves. So I wanted to introduce Superintendent Aline da Fonseca and Daniel Mohica, who is the Director of Family Engagement at Chelsea Public Schools in Massachusetts. We had presented with them earlier this year at the Superintendents Association webinar, and so wanted to replay this video for you so that you can learn from them today.
It's great to be here. I am the superintendent at Chelsea Public Schools. We're just right outside of Boston. And so we are a school district with about 6,000 students, pre-K through 12. 83% of our students are first language is not English. We have 85.8% high needs, and 70.6% of our students are economically disadvantaged. We really recognize the need to develop relationships with our families, and how we did that needed to be different than pre-pandemic. So we worked on building trust with our families. We wanted to make sure that our students and families knew about the child tax credit and any missed stimulus payments. So this was extremely important to us. First, because this is a lot of money that can have a huge impact on our families. And our families, we were the hardest hit city in Massachusetts by COVID. So this was extremely important to us. Many of our families have lost income. They had suffered hardship due to COVID. There was potentially thousands of dollars for individuals to access. And we wanted to make sure that anyone who was eligible could receive the funding. And we also knew that at least 650 children in Chelsea would miss out on this money if they didn't sign up. And this is according to IRS data. And so this became extremely important to us. And second, we also knew, and I say this always to our city manager and throughout this pandemic, is that the schools are the most trusted resources of information in our city. And given our population, many who are immigrants and have major distrust of our government, misinformation can spread, and schools, we can have a high impact on getting the right information at the right time. And so I really encourage my city leaders to say, I've encouraged them to please come to us. We will get information out, whether it's about the child's tax credit, whether it's about vaccinations, because again, schools are trusted. And so despite the schools not having tax knowledge, schools can have a huge influence and be the messenger and the connector to resources. And so what I'm going to do now is I'll introduce you to Daniel Mohica. He's our director of our Parent Information Center. He and his staff are on the ground. And so I'm turning it over to our wonderful director, Daniel Mohica.
Thank you so much, Dr. Beebe. Thank you to the Coalition on Human Needs and ASA for this presentation. So Dr. Beebe hit the nail on the head. Chelsea was it's a community that suffered a lot through COVID. So when Sarah reached out with this opportunity to get this word out on all this money that our families have access to or are entitled to, I jumped on it with approval of central office to kind of get the ball rolling, reaching out to my staff, letting them know that this is the next steps that we're going to do, and this is how we're going to go ahead and direct the calls that are coming into our office, because a lot of people, a lot of families, it's trusting the community leaders, trusting Chelsea Public Schools. So what we did was we used the resources provided that Sarah provided. Text messaging works very well for our families. A lot of our families work in locations where they don't have access to their phone immediately, and they miss our calls, and those lengthy messages sometimes just don't work for our families. So text messaging, they get to see it once they come out, either on break or after work, and they can go ahead and keep that on their phone and get back to it a little later. So we did send a text out to over 6,000 students to direct them to the Greater Boston Legal Services, which is an agency in Boston who offers great support for our families. That's something that Sarah and the Shaw Foundation had set up. So that resource was there. The key thing, what I find helpful, is to send out the initial text and do a follow-up text right before the day of an event, which kind of reminds parents, oh yeah, I had that on my calendar. It's great that they did remind me. Social media is also a great outlet. Sarah provided all the materials. We just posted on social media with the materials provided. We Chelsea-fied it so that it kind of talks to our families. And so social media, phone calls. Our families don't have a lot of email, but we do have those families that email is the best access for them. So we did all communication outlets. So the items that did work: social media, text messaging was very key, phone calls, and word of mouth. Use the resources provided. Sarah provided some great resources. Local agencies, La Colaborativa, who made a big impact during the COVID, the pandemic. They were holding informational sessions so that parents can go there and just kind of find out a little bit more, and where they can get the ITIN numbers and so on. And that's the work that we did here in Chelsea. I think that that it was a great run, and we're going to continue working off of that.
We do this, and I'm not the expert. Schools are not the expert, but we can point people in the right direction and to the resources. And so that's what we do. And we continue to do that in the middle of this pandemic. And the systems that we built will continue to use and learn from that. And again, we're happy to share whatever we've learned if anyone wants to reach out. what we discovered was that texting across the board was most effective. So if we had information that needs to go out, except for example, a survey, we would we'd blitz it out to all of our families, and right away within the first hour, we would get about 1,000 responses. And so it is the quickest way to reach families. So we would do that from central office. And then we can do a lot of follow-up at the individual schools as well, and communication at the school level. So there's central office level, and then we would, if we need more of a push, we would ask principals to push this out as well. And then as Daniel shared earlier, sending reminder texts is really helpful. So that is the most effective. So follow up with the text as well as the original text from several days ago, then another follow up.
Great, thank you so much, Dr. Abeyta, and to Daniel for sharing what they did and the impact that they had on their school community. Just wanted to highlight a few other examples of school outreach to really show what other schools have done that has also worked. So first, in addition to the incredible work that Chelsea did, Boston Public Schools also sent a text message out to about 48,000 families earlier this year. And we had over 8,000 families click through to that text message. We also included a link in that text to Boston Tax Help Coalition, which provides local support via phone. And so families also had the option to call. And so we had hundreds of phone calls into Boston Tax Help Coalition as well in response to that text message. Boston also trained their family liaisons. So we provided a brief presentation, just really giving family liaisons who support families in every school the information that they needed to just encourage folks to go to the website and learn more and see if they're eligible and apply. Lowell Public Schools, so just want to point out, not every district has access to text messaging, so they instead chose to email their families, which was their preferred way of engaging families. And that also resulted in hundreds of phone calls to the local tax help site, and I think a couple thousand hits to our website as well. And then finally, just wanted to call out Attleboro Public Schools, who hosted an information session for families in English and Spanish with interpretation in other languages available as well. And that was a virtual event that they did in order to get the word out in partnership with a local tax support agency. So definitely lots of ways to get the word out without really having to be kind of the tax expert, but really as the trusted messenger, per Dr. Abeyta's point, to get families the right information that they need when they need it. Next slide. In terms of recommendations, I think we hit on these already, but just to really point out one more time, really communicate in ways that work best for your families. If you can text, do so. If not, email, robocall, social media, you know what works to engage your families, and we encourage you to do so. You can also host a virtual event like Attleboro did with an expert in multiple languages, and really leverage your family liaisons if you have the opportunity to do so, just to inform them of what families can get and to really talk to families about the opportunity. Like Daniel said, send out messages more than once. Really use simple messaging. Just highlight you could get more federal money, and this is how, and this is really reflective in some of the materials that we have. Obviously, provide information in multiple languages where possible. Include the direct link to sign up. So in this case, we're recommending getctc.org. If there's other local help that you want to point people to, please feel free to do so, but we really recommend getctc.org as the place to encourage families to go to get more information and to sign up. And really design outreach to provide additional assistance only if it's needed. So a lot of families who use getctc.org actually don't need additional help to file their taxes. The tool is really enough, and they can finish, like Julia said, in about 15 minutes. So I would really encourage you to just send out the link, and if folks do decide that they need additional assistance, you can then point them in the right direction. And next slide. Finally, we have lots of outreach materials that the Coalition on Human Needs has developed and toolkits that they put together for you to find easy, ready to use multilingual resources. So there are text messages, flyers, sample robocalls, sample template emails that you can use. They're all available in 11 languages. And you can go to the bit.ly link here to download all of those and choose whatever you'd like to use and put information in perhaps that's more related to your school districts. A lot of these are customizable as well. And for additional resources, you can go to childtaxcreditoutreach.org. And now I'll turn it over to Julia.
Thanks, Sarah. And so we know that there's a wonderful opportunity coming up for all of you to connect with families. We know you're already communicating with families. And so in whatever way you believe is best, we really encourage you to take the resources that Sarah just laid out and send them to families in your school or district. And so you can send text messages, email, robocalls to families in your school or district. If you need support customizing any of those, please let us know. As Sarah said, we have these in 11 languages, but if there are languages missing that are represented in your district, please just reach out. You can distribute flyers. And as Sarah said, you can host a Q&A, whether in person or virtual, to provide parents and other guardians more information about this credit.
Great. And one other, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
One other thing we wanted to call out was just really how you can track your outreach impact. So if you go to codeforamerica.org/getctc outreach partner, you can request a unique URL. And what that is a unique link that just has a series of short letters. So for example, if you were Chelsea Public Schools, you'd choose getctc.org/CPS as your unique URL. And this gives you the ability to track your outreach and see how many people are coming to the website as a result, but then also how many people are actually using the GetCTC tool and filing their return. And then how much money and estimated refunds that they received as well. And there's an example on the right here. So we really recommend that you get a unique link. It really enables you to track your efforts and really see the impact on your families. And we'll also give you a link just for your district with a data dashboard so that you can track these as well. So again, please go to codeforamerica.org/getctc outreach partner to request that link.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all for listening to this. If you have any questions, please reach out to Sarah or to reach out to me. You can also sign up for email updates on the child tax credit here. We hope that we've made this as easy as possible for your school or district to take resources that match the needs of your community and to send this out. And you're in a position to help thousands and tens of thousands of families claim the money to which they're entitled. If you need any support, please don't hesitate to reach out.